wanted the best? You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
I'm Moses Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. The Chris Voss Show. Your favorite host in the world, of course, the Chris Voss Show, is with you once again today. 2 to 3 shows a day, 10 to 15 a week. What more do you want from me, people? We turn 15 in 3 more days. People watching this 10 years from now are going to be like, what? So just add 10 years to it, people, whatever the date is on the YouTube video. But guys, we are the family that loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as your dad did that one time that you fell off the swing. I don't know why I'm emotionally scarring people by bringing back their memories, but it's there. But we'll be talking about some of the anxieties that people might have about that today and how to resolve the fact that your dad didn't really love you when it comes down to it. Probably left for milk when you were 5. No, I'm just kidding. That's a gamer joke that we tell each other in gaming. But in the meantime, these are the jokes we tell so that we can lead you down the pathway of not minding so much the plugs, which are go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, TikTok /Chris Voss 1. And gosh darn it, go to iTunes and give us 5-star reviews. See how easy and painless that was, because we set up a diversionary tactic there of some sort of stupid ramble, and then we pitched you the thing, and you were like, I didn't see that coming, Chris. Only after 1,500 shows. Anyway, guys, we have an amazing gentleman on the show, and he's going to help us with some of the different things we have. I'm a little anxious to have him on the show. So he's an anxiety coach and expert on helping people get through anxiety. So he's going to help me get through my pre-show or my current show or my early show anxiety. I don't know where we're at with that, but we'll find out because he's the guy who diagnoses it. Adam Riley joins us on the show today. He's the coach of Heal Your Anxiety. And we're going to be talking to him about healing anxiety, dealing with our own emotional issues, because God knows I have quite a few. I mean, I think we all know that from watching the show, don't we, folks? And we're going to be talking to him. Welcome to the show, Adam. How are you?
Thank you very much, Chris. Great to be here. Happy birthday, 15 years. Well, for the
Thank
show.
you. Well, if we make it in the next 3 to 4 more days, I might quit by then and just be like, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this anymore. But probably not.
If I can help you with your anxiety to get you through the next few days, you might just make it.
There you go. Well, let's see, 15 and then 16, and I think it's the 20 that I'm wondering about. Will I still be alive in 20 years? Anyway, whatever. We're moving on. So give us your .com, Adam. So where can we find you on the interwebs?
All right. So my .com is actually a .org because I couldn't.
There we go.
.org. It's healyouranxiety.org.
There you go. And so give us a little bit of a bio on you.
Okay. Just a brief bio. I'm from New Zealand, originally from New Zealand. I travel a lot. I'm currently in Lisbon, and I've been working with anxiety intensely for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the quick bio.
There you go. When you say you're working with it, you mean you're helping people and issues like that?
Yeah, I was training with another coach who was focused on anxiety, who I learned from. And through my process with him and my own anxiety, I created my own tools, which have been proven to be very effective at helping people with anxiety.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview of kind of what you do, how you help people, and then we'll get us in the deets in a bit.
Okay, so the main thing that I want to share first with people is something that I've created, which is called the Anxiety Relief Protocol. It's 3 simple steps that you can do anywhere, anytime, and it has shown to really reduce anxiety very, very quickly. So this is kind of the main thing that I'm giving away for free, and I want to share as far and wide as I can. I believe it should be a household name one day. And then beyond that, for people who want to continue with me, I'm creating group coaching programs to, let's say the anxiety relief protocol is to help you get relief from anxiety, and afterwards the programs will be to help you heal anxiety completely, so that ideally you're not just getting relief from it, but it's gone.
There you go. And why? Let's before we get into some of the other details on why it's important, et cetera, et cetera. Let's talk a little bit about your hero's journey. What got you here? Did you suffer from some emotional issues and then anxiety? And what's your journey through life that taught you how to deal with this and fix it?
Yeah, totally. Great question. I feel like I've suffered from most kinds of anxiety,
Mhm.
definitely general anxiety, worries about the future. I've had health anxiety, but my main anxiety has been social anxiety. So
Oh,
anxiety in groups, talking to people, meeting people, doing this kind of thing. And to be honest, I still feel a little anxiety doing this kind of thing. So
sure.
I'm
That's
getting,
normal, though. That's normal, I
yeah,
think.
it's somewhat new to me to do this, so I still feel some anxiety. But I mean, compared to a few years ago, I would never get on a show like this.
Wow. Wow. So you made
So
quite a journey then.
yeah, when I was in school, I was disconnected. I had to take a year off of school just because I wasn't able to connect with the kids at school. So I really had a lot of anxiety. I've had anxiety where it just came over me. Comes out. A lot of people who have anxiety will understand this, like just a wave of anxiety, negative thoughts, just kind of takes you over, and there's feels like there's no way out.
Mhm.
And I think, like, talking about the hero's journey, like the one of the main points for me when I had anxiety was really this feeling like I was broken, that there was something wrong with me, and that there was no way to fix it, right?
Mhm.
This was really this horrible feeling, not only the anxiety, but the feeling like I was always going to be like that. And it's only been in the last few years since I started to work with this, and I've spent my whole life trying to find solutions. I won't go into the whole story, but through drinking when I was younger, that kind of gave me some relief. I went through a very intense spiritual journey, did tons of yoga, meditation, which kind of helped. But really, it was when I started studying with this coach that was dealing with anxiety, Daniel Packard, started to learn with him. And I started to understand what anxiety was. And I found these tools. From when I found these tools and I understood how anxiety works, I really got the sense that it's possible to be free from it. And that was incredible. It was like, not only, yeah, it's like, I don't have to be like this forever. I'm not fundamentally broken. This is something inside of me. This is something that's happening to me that I can work on and I can move towards being free from. And every step that I take towards that freedom, like, I get a bit of my life back and I
Mhm.
enjoy my life a bit more. My relationships are better. I'm just able to enjoy day-to-day life better. My business is better because I'm able to bring this new energy to it.
There you go. So let's lead into that. How does like anxiety and being emotionally maybe insecure is the right word, or unstable, how does that impact our lives and why is that a real big issue? It seems obvious, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great question. Something that comes to mind for me, there's so many ways. I mean, I guess I could define anxiety first. I have a kind of a
Mhm.
specific way that I define it, which is any kind of fear or uncomfortable emotion that is out of proportion to the situation. So we have a calibrated amount of fear. Say, even for showing up on the show, it's normal to be a little nervous because that makes me focus
Mhm.
and prepare. Having some fear before crossing the road is good because you want to check both ways. Having some grief after a sad event, somebody passes, that's normal. But whenever these emotions are out of calibration to the situation,
Mhm.
and there's much more than is needed, then I would consider this anxiety. This is kind of like, uh, yeah, this excess of emotion. How does it affect us? I mean, I can talk a lot about, well, social anxiety.
Mhm.
Uh, if people are afraid to say no when they mean no, if they're afraid to set boundaries, if they're afraid to tell somebody how they feel about them, if they're afraid to ask for a raise at work, if they are needy. Neediness is a form of anxiety. So if you are destroying a relationship, neediness is a kind of strategy based on fear, right? It's based on anxiety. And so you can be destroying a relationship by being too needy, codependency, all this kind of thing that's based on anxiety. A very common anxiety is health anxiety. So if you know, we all have to face death. We all have to face difficult situations in our health. And that's hard enough without having a ton of anxiety about it. Right?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yes. So, and that can actually impede your recovery or healing that you may have available to you if you actually have anxiety on top of it. That's not to mention depression, which I think is an extreme form of anxiety. Yes.
Yeah. Do you find in your research and working with people that some people think depression and anxiety is hereditary, or maybe it comes from patterns learned or trauma as a child?
Yeah. So I lean more towards the trauma way of looking at it, and trauma obviously can be specific intense events, or it can just be the thousands of times in your childhood when you didn't get your needs met.
Yeah.
And you blamed yourself, or you came up with a strategy to get your needs met that you've embodied and are now playing out as an adult. So I lean more towards that. The idea of it being hereditary, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I would say even if you had a predisposition to having anxiety, even if you had a genetic predisposition to having anxiety, I wouldn't focus on that so much, just because whatever your predisposition is, you can't change that. But I do believe that focusing, for example, doing the anxiety relief protocol, you can heal a lot of your anxiety. Just being predisposed to something doesn't mean you have to have it.
Yeah.
And I would focus more on that space than on the predisposition, just because I would prefer to focus on something I can do something about.
That's true. That's true. Because a lot of people, and we're really bad as human beings on actualizing what's going to happen, the future. We worry about so much stuff that never happens. I think there's a few different scholars or Stoics and stuff that have said, people worry 90% of the time about stuff that will never happen. We worry, we'll think of all these crazy scenarios, and then some things are going to happen. I mean, we're all going to die. We're all given a death sentence. I was just listening to, I think, David Goggins' book, and there are certain finite elements to our life, death and taxes. As someone famously said hundreds of years ago, it still seems true. And so, and you can worry about all you want, but there's an old line, one of my favorite lines from the movie No Country for Old Men is, "You can't stop what's coming. That's vanity." And so there are some things you just need to say, hey, let's not blow up everything into a bigger thing than it is. Let's process what's going on in the present right now. And if we want to change the future, how we can change it through being present. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, what comes to me is, the thing with anxiety is that it's not logical, right? Like, these things are all true, and they're like an idea of where we can get to, where we can get to that place where we're like, okay, everyone's going to die. I'm going to die. That's going to happen. So just accepting that's kind of an ideal, right? That we want to get to. Anxiety really is like not something that people can just do, but can just get out of. You can't just choose not to have anxiety, and you can't just you can definitely move towards and these ideals, right? It's good to hold these kinds of truths, because I would even say that that's kind of it. Like the anxiety is not true.
Mhm.
You know, like the anxiety is all of these, whatever it is, it's an augmentation of the truth. There may be some truth in it. Like, for example, the worries that you said, there may be some foundation to some of those worries, but it's just expanded and your reaction is way out of proportion to it.
Yeah.
So
In many cases, like you're saying, it's not true. It's kind of some fantasies that we're kind of embellishing in our head, and then we're worrying about something that may has high likelihood of maybe never happening. And yeah, and so we're just spinning our wheels, spending our time being afraid of some fantasy we've cooked up in our head instead of focusing on reality.
yes, and if you want, I can give you maybe one of the most powerful. Each one works differently, but one of the steps of the protocol of how you deal with this, right? And that
Mhm.
is, so you have all these worries, these fantastic worries that are out of proportion to reality,
Mhm.
and the kind of main mistake that people do when they have anxiety is to try and figure that out, try and use their logical mind to problem solve and to realize what's true and not true, etc. And you're trying to do kind of these complicated things, problem solving things, which would be fine, except it's very hard to do when you have anxiety, because the fear response is activated, your amygdala is activated, and your rational mind is actually minimized. So trying to problem solve is not a first step for relief for when you have anxiety. It's not a first step. But if you have all these thoughts coming at you, if you were to listen, just listen, and keep listening and listening and listening. You don't have to agree or disagree. You don't have to do anything with the information. You can just listen, listen, and listen. And what happens is you actually start to absorb that information.
Hmm.
Even if you don't have to do anything about it, you don't have to understand it. It doesn't have to be true. This is one of the steps. You just listen, listen, listen. And this will actually pull out the energy from it. So this energy that's kind
Oh.
of out of control will just start to calm down on its own. And I recommend anyone listening, yourself, anytime you feel any kind of anxiety, try just listening, especially if there's a lot of thoughts, right? Because it can
Yeah.
be a physical experience, but if there's a lot of thoughts, try just listening, listening, listening.
Do
It
you
helps.
try and disconnect yourself from the emotion in that point of listening, where you just try and maybe act like it's maybe a movie screen, it's away from you, and you're kind of seeing what's going on, but you're not letting it overtake you emotionally? How does that work?
So personally, I don't do that. I'm not speaking against it. Like, I'm sure there's other modalities that may do that, and if
Mhm.
that works for somebody, great. Personally, my belief with the thoughts and emotions, because I believe anxiety comes from trauma, meaning stored patterns of thoughts and emotions that are stored somewhere in our system. They're
Mm.
somehow activated, so they're triggered. And I believe that the way to get free of these thoughts and emotions is for these thoughts and emotions to go to their natural resolution, which means for a feeling, it's to be felt. And for a thought, I believe it's actually to be heard. So I already talked about listening. So that basically these feelings were not felt at some point. They were repressed, so they were stored. And by feeling them, by allowing yourself to feel them and allowing them to run through the system and kind of holding space for them as long as you can. If it gets too much, yeah, maybe you want to do something kind of you can definitely avoid.
Mhm.
What I'm talking about is the opposite of avoiding. You could avoid if it feels like it's too much, but if you can hold space for it, allow yourself to feel it, allow yourself to feel the emotions, be okay with it, and listen to the thoughts. Like, these thoughts and emotions are actually resolving, releasing. So rather than everything that most people have been doing that has been kind of repressing, avoiding, etc., which means that they don't process. So yeah, this is how to really both relieve the anxiety in the moment, but also to get free from that much trauma from your system, so that over time you have less anxiety.
There you go. That makes all the difference in the world. And being able to process and how you approach it, it sounds like is the real big deal. In is maybe half the battle understanding that, okay, I'm having anxiety at this point and identifying the problem, and then from there being able to, you know, utilize it, because a lot of times, sometimes we go through anxiety, at least I do from my personal experience. Um, Sometimes you don't realize you're in it until you're really deep in it and you're like, oh crap, and maybe some people don't even realize they're in a state of anxiety. Is that true?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. The ability to identify it is half the battle. Yeah, the other half is what do you do when you identify it. But the truth is, like, anytime you're activated, anytime your emotional system is activated, it could be something someone said, or a message someone didn't send, or uh, just any situation where you're activated. That is anxiety. This
Mhm.
is why I actually believe, just everybody has some form of anxiety. The people who say they have anxiety, it's because it's really starting to have a serious negative effect on their life. But most people can live their lives. They more or less know how to manage these emotions. But it's good to see that these things are the same. They're just on a scale of how strong they are. And also, the ability to recognize smaller levels of anxiety is a great training ground for when you have a higher amount of anxiety. So, for example, learning the protocol and learning to apply it in your life, it's hard to remember anything when you have, I measure anxiety from 1 to 10.
Mhm.
So when you have 10 being high, 10 being a panic attack, when you have 8, 9, 10 out of 10 anxiety, it's hard to remember anything. But if you train on the little times that a little bit of anxiety comes, and you learn to do the protocol, and you start to feel your anxiety drop, because it will generally drop in the moment when you do it, then you're training yourself, like practicing, so that when you have that bigger something happens, that's a big thing. We all have these things in our lives every so often that are a shock, that but will bring up a lot of anxiety. So you'll have more of a chance that you'll remember what to do. If that makes
There you
sense.
go. There you go. I mean, knowing is half the battle, as they say. Where if you understand what's going on with you, rather than you're just kind of lost in a hurricane of emotion and thought. So, how do people work with you? Do you work with men, women, both? What is your specialty in working with people, and what are you usually looking for to help people with?
Yeah. So at the moment, my program, like, I'm creating a 1 month program that's really open for anybody and open for any kind of anxiety. I will specify later on and work with specific kinds of anxiety, but actually, just because this protocol, as I've seen so far, really, I say, if your anxiety is thoughts and emotions, this will help.
Uh huh.
So, which, all anxiety is thoughts and emotions, and this really focuses on the fact that you're having anxiety rather than what your anxiety is about. So it's
Hmm.
really this first step. I also call it like essential first aid for anxiety. So at the moment, I'm really open to anybody in this first program that I'm creating,
Hmm.
that I've created. And later on, I will make specific programs for each different kind of anxiety as well.
There you go. And you work with men and women, correct?
Yes.
There you go. Anxiety was something. Well, I'll tell a story about anxiety. When I was starting my first company, I think I always had anxiety. I had ADHD, and in my teens, I would check the door like 30 times a night. Right? I would
Wow.
be one of those high things where, did I check the door? You're like, no, I know I checked the door. But wait, did you check the door? Was that last night or this night? And check the door locks again. There were different things that I would do to that were anxiety, ADHD sort of stuff. Um, and and I went through my life not really getting that fixed. And then when I started my first company, and then a year and a half later I started my second company, I started really crashing with ADHD. And I was destroying office equipment when I would lose my temper. I was being very destructive and reacting very poorly. And I remember one day I went in to, and this is back in the days when nobody knew what anxiety was or seemed to know what anxiety was, or very few people did in the 90s, I suppose. And I remember going into the ER one day, and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. My head hurts, my chest hurts, everything hurts. I'm going through these panic attacks, and I don't think anybody knew what panic attacks were other than doctors. And the gal said to me, yeah, you're suffering from anxiety. And I went, yeah, and I also suffer from fear, happiness, loathing, excitedness. Like, what the fuck? You're telling me I feel an emotion? Like I'm suffering from that? She's like, whoa, whoa, whoa! I was about ready to rip her head off, and because I was jacked up on anxiety. And she's like, whoa, 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 no, hold on. Anxiety is you need to see a psychiatrist, get some help, and probably get on some drugs and blah blah blah. And eventually I did, but a lot of people don't realize they're in that state. No one teaches this in school. They really should have a good psychology class that goes. They should put everything when they do psychology class and be like, "Hi, you're 16. Okay, here's your fucked up problem. Fix it. Have fun. Bye. Here's your problem." I don't know. Maybe I should go visit schools and do that. I could probably do that.
Go tell kids what their problem is.
Yeah, I think I do that on Modern Warfare 2 and gaming. So there you go. But that was my journey to find out that I had anxiety. And over life, there's been 2 times in my life where I've had to go back to medication to get back present and get back in frame. Usually over depression or something like, I don't know. They ran a Snickers bar at the candy store or something. We've all been there, right? That, or they're at your favorite flavor of Doritos. So there is cause for depression, and people go through that sometimes chemically, et cetera, et cetera. So what's the best way for people to reach out to you and do business with you, or get to know you better, or talk about maybe how you could coach them and help them do what they need to do?
Yeah, sure. So I have my website, which is healyouranxiety.org. It's a basic website. I'm kind of just getting started with online stuff. I have the free giveaway. That's really the main thing that I can suggest people to do, the anxiety relief protocol. So
Okay.
I have a free training that goes into the 3 steps, deeply into the 3 steps, and also gives people tools for them to be able to implement that in their life right away. I give a guided practice. So, for example, if somebody had anxiety, they could go in and just even take that and go through it and follow it, and it would likely reduce their anxiety on the spot in a few minutes.
There you go. Well, that's definitely important. And if you know somebody who's suffering from depression and anxiety and overthinking, and if you're reaching a point where your thoughts are overloading your system, and you can't perform tasks, and you're just ending up in the fetal position on your floor, or you're walking in some room all the time going, why am I here? There might be too much going on. And there's a certain point where you can overload the brain just can't handle it. And about the way I resolved it is just kind of frontal lobotomy scheduled for next week. So I'll just be happy and drooling on the side. So yeah, I'll just be sitting there going, with my frontal lobotomy. So Adam, tell people where they can find you on the interwebs and get to know you better.
Yeah. So again, I just have the website at the moment, Heal Your Anxiety. That's what I've got.
There you go.
Yeah, I can
There
give.
you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Adam. People need to reach out to you so they can check out your anxiety relief protocol. 3 simple steps you can do anytime, anywhere to get immediate relief from anxiety. Thanks for coming on, Adam. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
There you go. And hopefully we've helped a lot of people, and we'll let you help a lot of people here in the future. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.